Damon Schultz, community organizer for Running Rebels. I'm also the co-chair of the Health and Wellness Committee for Black Men Organizing. Quick disclaimer, I am not an expert in health and wellness. It was something that I was interested in and I wanted to be a part of it. But today we have an expert in health and wellness. So I'm going to introduce you to Dr. Izzard.
Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon. All right. So it is good to see you all here. See some brothers. And here to hear about getting healthy. So first of all, let me stop and tell you, Jim Addison invited me to be part of this, and I'm glad he did. We're talking about health, and right now I'm a family doctor. So I literally grew up like 5 blocks from here on Port Washington. And back in the day when I remember when the Palace was over here, we could roller skate. Yeah, of all your old schools, OGs, y'all remember that. But yeah, Milwaukee's my home, and so I always one day when I was a kid, there was a TV show called Marcus Well BMD. Okay, yeah. So I think I'll say that. So there was a TV show called Marcus Well BMD, and again, OGs, I might remember that. But I used to watch that show when I was a kid. I said, I want to be a doctor one day. And I had no idea what a doctor did. First doctor I ever met, I was in college. I was at Marquette. And I met Laurie Thomas, who was the first black doctor I ever met. And of course, growing up, we didn't have health insurance. And so, but anyway, so my parents kind of helped me to that dream. And so I remember getting a microscope when I was in I think my 12th birthday. And I went out to the pond and got some water and looked at the little paramecium swimming in the water, and the euglena and the amoebas, and so that really turned me on. And when I was younger than that, I used to run around the neighborhood with this Tonka truck, and I would have these jars and there were spiders. And I was really into spiders, and I found a spider and it had eggs, and the eggs hatched and there were all these little baby spiders, and I was like, man. So then I started finding other spiders, and I went to the library, looked up what kind of spiders there were, and so that's what science really is. It's not doing formulas and stuff like that. It's really seeing what nature is around you. And so if I can encourage anybody, because some of you young brothers, you might be interested in science, but you say I can't go to college, or I can't, much less go to medical school. I didn't think I could do it. And it was because people encouraged me, people backed me up, and that's how I became a doctor. So when I got into medical school at the Medical College of Wisconsin, I thought I was going to be a pediatrician. And so as part of the training, what they do is they have everybody learn everything. So when you train, all the medical students all have to learn how to deliver babies. They all have to learn how to do some assisted surgery. They all have to learn psychiatry. They all have to learn family medicine and internal medicine and OBGYN. So we all have to do all that stuff. And then what happens at the end, that's 2 years, the last 2 years of medical school, 4 years. And then you'd have to decide what you want to do. And like most family doctors, I liked doing the babies. I liked doing procedures. And as far as pediatrics, I like seeing kids, but I didn't want to, after doing a month of just seeing a bunch of kids with snotty noses and doing well child, I said, I like kids, but I don't want to do that all day. And so as a family doctor, I see adults, I see kids, I deliver babies. I've actually delivering the babies now, but yeah, delivered babies. So you kind of see the whole thing, the whole big picture. And so, so one of the things I'm working with right now is there's actually 2 projects. One is all of us. There's this project through the medical college where it's actually a NIH, National Institutes of Health funded program trying to get more black people into research projects. And the reason why that's important is because, and we talked about some of the stuff today, it's all dependent on research. It's all dependent on what kind of stuff we know. And the data is based on young, healthy white men. And so if we don't have us represented in these studies, well, then they make recommendations, they make medications, they make guidelines without us in mind. So we got to be involved with that. That's the one thing. The other thing I'm working on right now is prostate cancer. One of the things that really struck me I saw this heat map. So you got to see heat map. The heat map is a map of, this map was of southeastern Wisconsin. So it was Milwaukee County, Ozaukee County, Washington County, Racine, and Kenosha. So this map, and it showed, someone did the research, and they showed the areas where people had prostate cancer. Okay, men have prostate cancer, and you can see these little red spots. So the heat map is the red areas where there's a lot of concentration, and then the blue areas where there's fewer. Okay, so you look at the map, you can see that there are incidents of prostate cancer, and most of it's going to be in areas where you have the major cities. So in Milwaukee, there's going to be more. Racine, Kenosha, there's going to be more. Waukesha, you see it. Then the next map they had was same area. They had the prostate cancer deaths. And you look at the two maps. The maps where the incidence was, where people had it, was scattered all over. The map that showed where the deaths were all north side of Milwaukee, Racine, Kenosha.
Doctor, here's a quick question.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I'm not an expert. What's a prostate?
What's a prostate? Okay. For most of us in this room, there's a few exceptions who don't have prostates, but your prostate gland is a walnut-sized gland that at the base of your penis. Okay. The only way to really get to it is to go from the back. Okay. And that's the reason why if you have a rectal exam, that's the way they check your prostate, is going from the back. Okay. But your prostate cancer is the most common cancer in men. So if you think about, well, I don't know, I almost have a picture of the anatomy, but you got your bladder, you got your prostate, and you got your urethra. Okay. So the urethra is where you pee through. So this prostate is in between your bladder and your peeing. So if your prostate is big, it stops the urine from flowing. So you find a lot of men as they get older have a hard time peeing because that prostate is squeezing on that urethra. Okay. Now that's a condition called BPH, benign prostatic hyperplasia. It's not cancer. I'll get to you. It's not cancer, but there is, and again, a lot of men have prostate cancer, and it has some of the same symptoms. So you can't always tell. Now, some things that completely be abnormal, like you shouldn't see urine, you shouldn't see blood in your urine, you shouldn't see blood in your semen. That would be a red flag. That means something's not right. Okay, but as far as having a hard time peeing, that may be part of normal aging. You had a question?
Right behind the speaker. We should blow everybody's ears.
Yeah.
Come over here real quick. If anyone has a question, please come by me and we can get that question. Go ahead.
So I was talking to a man downstairs, and he basically told me they don't do it from the behind no more. They do like blood shots now.
Yeah, very good. Yeah. So if I was going to get to that, so I'll make sure I'm not about a speaker here. What he said was that they don't do the rectal exam anymore. Let me go back and talk about prostate cancer. Okay, so I'll take it from the beginning. So we all understand what the prostate is. Prostate cancer is the most common cancer in men. However, prostate cancer is not the cancer that kills most men. Okay, still more men die from lung cancer. More men die from I think it's number 2 for as far as the number deaths, but it's not. But as far as incidence, it's the most common one. Okay, there's an organization called the U.S. Preventive Services Task Force, and they make recommendations about screening tests. So a few years ago, they made a recommendation that every man should get checked for prostate cancer. Okay, and at that time we were doing a rectal exam. They called it a digital rectal exam. So we did. So we started checking guys for prostate cancer, and they said start at age 50 and on. So we started doing that, and what we found was over the next decade or so, we found that we were diagnosing a lot more guys with prostate cancer because we were looking for it. Not surprising, but the number of prostate cancer deaths was not going down, which kind of implied then we were taking out a bunch of prostates that were cancers, but they weren't going to kill the guy. Okay, so it kind of implied we were over treating prostate cancer. So what they did was they did this big national study looking at that question: are we over treating prostate cancer? Are we taking prostates out that wouldn't have killed these guys? And so, because what we know now is that a lot of these prostate cancers, most of them are slow growing. So you can have a prostate cancer, and it could be there for 10 years and not kill you. You can die of something else, die of a heart attack, die of a car accident. So it wasn't killing these guys. So they did a big study. They took 75,000 guys. 30,000 some of the guys were in the study group. So what they did was every year, beginning age 50, they did a blood test, the PSA blood test, and they did a rectal exam. Okay. Then they had 30,000 some guys who were equally matched. They put them in the control group. They did not screen them. They only got checked if they had an issue. Okay, so the guys in the study group, the guys who got checked every year, they watched these two groups over 10 years, and the guys in the study group are more likely than the control group to develop or to have an elevated PSA. Not surprising. That PSA is a blood test, prostate-specific antigen. It's a protein that's found in the prostate. When the prostate is injured, like from cancer or infection or anything, other things can also injure it, but if that prostate is injured, that protein gets released in your bloodstream, you can measure it. Okay, so that was a good marker for checking for prostate cancer. So anyway, so the guys in the control group or on the study group were more likely to have an elevated PSA than the control group. That's because they weren't screening the control group. The guys in the study group also were more likely to get a biopsy done because of the elevated PSA. Okay, because they were looking to see if it was cancer. Some of the guys got infections from the biopsy. They were treatable, but they were more likely than a control group to get a biopsy-related infection. They were more likely to be diagnosed with prostate cancer than a control group. Okay, and then for that, they were more likely to get their prostate taken out. It's called a prostatectomy. And this is where it gets important. Taking your prostate out, they're more likely, like I said, the prostate's in between your bladder and the outside. When you take that prostate out, guess what? You have a hard time holding your urine. So a lot of guys will now have urinary incontinence. So they got to wear adult diapers. They're more likely, also, going to that prostate, you got your nerves, okay? And you say, well, okay, is that important? It's important for erections. So when you take that prostate out, you are prone to develop erectile dysfunction. So the guys in the study group, again, compared to the control group, they were more likely to get biopsy-related infections. They were more likely to get erectile dysfunction. They're more likely to get bladder incontinence and bowel incontinence than the control group. And this is the kicker. However, they did not live any longer over that 10-year period than the guys in the control group. So this organization that talked about, the U.S. Preventive Services Task Force, said, look, we can't recommend doing this as a screening test because there are clear harms of being in that study, in that group that we tested every year. They're more likely to get erectile dysfunction, bladder incontinence, bowel incontinence, biopsy-related infections, and then the stress of being diagnosed with cancer, but they got no benefit from it because they didn't live any longer than the other guys. So what they said was, stop screening guys. Well, that's what they said. They didn't say stop screening. What they said was, have a discussion with guys. Explain the risks versus benefits, okay? And let them decide. Well, what the medical community took it to mean was, okay, we're not going to screen because we were causing all these problems by screening these guys. And so a lot of people just stopped screening. Either they had the conversation and the men said, rectal exam, no, thank you. And they said, we're not going to do it. So we stopped screening. Okay, and so now it looks like the incidence of prostate cancer is going up again. So we don't. Again, going back to studies, we don't know what the right thing to do now is. So, anyway, the incidence of prostate cancer has ticked up a little bit. And if you haven't had the discussion with your doctor, you should have that discussion. I discuss with all my men, explain exactly what I told you here. It takes longer to explain it than to do it, which is probably the reason why most people aren't getting it done, because the doctors, they got 15 minutes, they're in and out, and they don't have time to give you a 10-minute conversation about why they want to check your prostate. Okay.
Which usually ends up with a no, to be honest.
No, right, right.
So, doctor, the conversation you just had was mostly aimed at 40 and up, basically. So we have a lot of young people. What are some things they can do right now to avoid, at their best, that situation at all? Is there certain stuff they should be trying to drink, some stuff they should be trying to eat, things like that?
Right. Let me bring it back around, because we talked about that prostate cancer map. And this is why I'm involved with this prostate cancer stuff, because I don't know what I should be telling my patients. When they come in to see me, my men who are And now, one of the things we also know that when black men, when we get prostate cancer, it tends to be more aggressive and it tends to be further along. Okay? Now, the question is, why is that? And I don't know the answer to that either. Is it because we don't have access to health care because we don't have insurance? Is it because the doctors aren't talking to us about it? Is it because we're refusing to get it? Is it, I mean, it could be a whole lot of other reasons why we're not getting screened and getting this stuff tested, or why we're getting screened later or being detected later. So what can the young guys do? We want you, I think at this point, the main thing is I want you to know what a prostate is.
And the function of the prostate.
Exactly, yeah. So if you know what the prostate is, you know, when you talk about prostate cancer, you know, at least have some idea what we're talking about.
Did you talk about the function? Did you talk about the function of the prostate?
I didn't really talk about, no. The function of the prostate is it makes secretions that go into when you have intercourse, okay? And you make your semen, okay? The semen is not just sperm, there's other things in there because that sperm has to have something to live on. It needs energy, so it needs other secretions in there to keep it alive. And so that stuff comes from your prostate. And so, and it's only of the volume of your semen, only 5% of it comes from what's made in the prostate. So it's not a whole lot of stuff. It's really just kind of stuff, energy and stuff to support the sperm. So if someone has a prostatectomy, or someone has so they had prostate removed, or they or have a vasectomy, you guys have heard of vasectomies, okay, where they actually cut off they separate the sperm from the secretions. It doesn't have a big effect because 95% of it is the other stuff. It's the sperm and all that stuff, okay, or the secretions, I should say.
Quick question, like they say, an apple a day keeps the doctor away. Mm-hmm. What keeps the prostate from going their way? Is there anything you would suggest that people drink, eat, or read even to know about the prostate?
There's a lot of stuff people looking at what it is that that contributes to prostate cancer. Is it diet? And we do think that a part of it is, and you can say, well, most things, diet plays a role. So people who eat, who have a vegetarian, vegan diet tend to have less, we think have a less incidence of prostate cancer. But none of this is like completely straightforward. Because if it were that easy, we'd say, oh, everybody just go on a vegan diet, you won't get prostate cancer. Okay, so we know vegans who still get prostate cancer. There's been looking at ejaculation. We know that guys who ejaculate, I think it was more than 20 times a month, have a lower incidence of prostate cancer. Okay, but I know, right?
See, we close to groaning here. We can just let that marinate. We can just let that one just marinate. We don't even have to talk about that one. Hey, take a 5-second laugh break, get it out your system. Let that marinate.
Yes.
And then we can get back to the conversation.
You asked, brother.
Hey, asking you so far.
Yeah, that's one of the things. But yeah, we're not finding anything that's 100% that says you do this, you're not going to get prostate cancer. Another thing too is, and where it gets to be tricky is because, again, we got a lot of guys who have prostate cancer, but it's not spreading, it's not doing anything. So you got guys that are in their 70s, and they had prostate cancer for 10 years and 20 years and hasn't done anything to them yet.
Of course, what are some signs or symptoms, other than you said blood in the urine, that you could tell at home, that you could see and be alarmed, like intermittent streams or something like that?
Right. So if you think about the prostate, like I said, it's a walnut-sized thing. It's got a hole in it where the urine goes through. So anything that's a cancer is going to be a tumor. It's going to be growing, okay? So if it's compressing that urine flowing through, you're going to have a problem with peeing. That's going to be the main thing. And depending if it's right there at the urethra, you're going to have blood. But short of that, you're not going to have too many symptoms. As a blood in your semen is definitely a red flag. Okay, you should never have that. Blood in the urine might be a problem. And also, problem with peeing, but that's pretty common. So that's why you got to get screened. Because you can't just go by the symptoms. And usually, if you wait till you have symptoms, that means the prostate is pretty far gone. And so this is one of those cancers that if you catch it early, if you catch the cancer while it's still in the prostate, your chance of surviving is like 95%. Very good, 5-year survival rate. When you get to, actually 99%. Once it gets to the surface of it, it's like 95%. So, but it's still in the prostate, but it's on the surface of the prostate. Once it gets out of the prostate, your chances of survival goes way down. And so, and prostate tends to spread to your back. It tends to spread to the bone. So yeah, you'll find a lot of guys, they'll start having back pain all of a sudden. They get an x-ray and they see that there's a tumor growing in the bone. They do the biopsy, they find it's prostate cancer.
Thank you, Doctor. Is there, what other major health concerns would you say affect the Black community and also have a preventative diet or activity that young people can start on now so they don't have to deal with those issues later?
Right. I'm gonna tell you, this is the problem. This is the problem, and we most recent data says 75% of Americans are overweight or obese. 3/4, 75%. Okay, and this is where a lot of the stuff is coming from: high blood pressure, diabetes, cancers. All those things can be traced back to our lifestyle, what we're eating. And as you get older, that naturally kind of comes on too, because when you're young, like you guys, you go out running, you play basketball 4 or 5 hours a day and come back in and eat and go back out again. When you get older, you're not as active, so you're not burning as many calories. But also, and there's a big study that came out last year that kind of got a lot of press, looking at, I think it was a Swedish study, looked at aging. And we think that aging was a gradual thing. We think, okay, you're 18, by the time you're 78, your health is kind of gradually declined over the years. Well, no, what happens is there's actually 2 periods where your body makes major changes. Okay, one's at 40, the first is at 45, at 44, I should say, in the study. So 44, hormone levels start changing. Your chance of developing diabetes and stuff goes up. Okay, the second one's at 60. So those you guys who are 45, 44, 60, that you expect the change is coming. But yeah, it's a lifestyle. So it's what we're eating. Again, we can't. I wish it was as clear as saying that that there are certain foods. We know that certain foods are bad for you. Okay, and so they take all the trans fats. They got rid of trans fats because you don't need trans fats and it's not good for you. Other things, people will argue with you up and down that meat's bad for you. Okay, you ask a vegetarian, vegan, they're gonna curse meat. But then you got people who are doing Atkins diet or doing keto diet, and all they do is eat meat, and they swear by it. And so again, until we do these studies, we don't know, okay, who's right, and probably it's somewhere in the middle. In fact, what it comes down to really is you got to do everything in moderation. You can have sweets, you can have meat, you can have things, but you got to do it in moderation. And we probably should be, when we eat, we should be eating more fruits and vegetables than meat.
What about high flamers? Because we've been having this debate about high flamers for the longest. Because, like I said, I'm not an expert,
right,
but I've been trying to be a little more conscious. So looking at the back of the warning labels and trying to see how much sugar this one have and this and that. And I keep seeing this red dye number 40, and I know it's super high in high flamers.
Right.
And I also heard that they're starting to have young people having terrible stomach issues, and they eat high flamers. Not like 1 or 2. They hit like pounds of high flamers a week.
Yeah. I'm gonna say anything with that much red dye in it is not good for you. So that's another thing too. We're looking at the dyes, because a lot of those dyes are in there just to make it look good, make it look red. So your hot stuff is supposed to be red, and if it's something that's grape, it's supposed to be purple, and so they put these colors in there, and it does nothing to do for the taste. It just makes it look better. And so.
Don't that red dye come from a bug that they crunch up?
Yeah, some a couple of different ones, that depending on what color it is, and maybe different things. Yeah. So.
Some bug they crunch up and so y'all eat bug beetles.
Dr. Drami, how you doing?
Yes. Hey, how you doing?
Good.
Good to see you in person. Can you talk about the impact of stress on young people's health and wellness?
Yes. When I talk to my young people, so I go through also with my guys over 50, or actually 45, because we should be screening. Let me go back and tell you that too, because I want you to make sure you understand that when you leave here. You should begin screening for prostate cancer at 45, because we are considered higher risk. Normally it's 50. Okay. Some groups will even say 40 now. Okay. But if you have a first degree relative, first degree meaning that a brother, a father, a child who has prostate cancer, you should be getting screened 10 years before that person actually developed cancer. Let's say you had a brother who got screened for prostate cancer at 45, and at that time his PSA was elevated and they already had cancer. You should be getting screened at 35 then, okay? So because it takes about 10 years for that cancer to do something. And actually, that goes the same thing with colon cancer. If you got a relative with colon cancer, you should be getting screened 10 years before that person developed it. So even though the guidelines say 45, you should be getting screened earlier. I want you to understand that, yeah, you should be getting screened. And so you guys, again, that's going to be way off for you young fellas. But, you keep that in mind. But what I tell my young people when they come in is your chance of dying of cancer is pretty low. Your chance of dying from heart disease is pretty low. But your chance of dying from a gunshot is actually pretty high. So best thing that you can do to prevent premature death when you're 18 years old is to make sure you use your head where you are, especially if you're black. The number one cause of death for black men 14 to 25 is homicide. Homicide. So watch where you are. You could be at a party, and that's what usually happens. You're at a party or something, and something goes off, and you may not be the intended victim, but you become the victim. You're in the wrong place at the wrong time. Okay, so that, and then also accidents is number 2. So make sure you wear your seatbelts. Make sure, and if you drink, people when they're high and they're drunk, they do all kind of crazy things. So people do risky behaviors that they wouldn't do, if they were sober. So that's a big thing too. But again, homicide, you got to keep that in mind for you young fellas. And stress. Ooh, boy. Stress is a huge thing in our communities. In fact, it's an interesting thing. So when you look at African immigrants, a lot of Nigerians here and other countries, come here, and their health is a lot better than our health, even though they're immigrants, even though they're coming from a lot of times from poorer countries, but their health is better than our health for a generation. And then their kids, guess what? Their kids' health is like our health. So there's something happening about the American lifestyle that's actually increasing things like their infant mortality rate goes up, maternal mortality rate goes up when the woman is having a baby, general health, all that stuff gets worse after they get here. So the question is, why is that? We're trying to figure that still out. Is it because of the food we're eating? Is it because of stress? And and I'm talking about stress. A lot of it is we live in cities, so there's stress involved with that. We tend to live in places where there's a lot of environmental toxins. Cars, when cars drive on the street, we're inhaling the exhaust from that. Factories and things that we're in the city. So there's a lot of toxins that we're coming in contact with. So there's a whole lot of stuff. Plus the racism. And so a lot of times we internalize that, and that affects our health too. When you're stressed, your body is. I'm gonna come to you. I'm going here because I'm gonna come back to that.
Now, anxiety has a lot to do with that, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's all I had to say.
Anxious to get that out real quick. Gotcha.
Let's talk about anxiety. Okay, so back in the days where you'd be walking through the woods and a bear would jump out at you, and you had to decide if you were going to fight that bear or you're going to run from it. Okay, and those are your choices. Okay, now there were a few people that would pass out, and they didn't live very long because the bear got them. But they call it the fight or flight response. Okay, and so what happens is, without you thinking about it, because this has to happen automatically, that bear jumps out, your heart rate starts speeding up. Your lungs start to get more oxygen to the muscles, into your bloodstream. Your pupils constrict so you can see better. You're not worried about digesting your food, so you start moving that blood away from digesting to now getting out to those muscles. Because you gotta either run from that bear or fight it. Okay, that happens automatically. It's your autonomic nervous system, and it's called the fight or flight response. The problem, though, is that we live in a time we don't got bears, but we got cars. You got someone driving crazy down the street, and guess what? Same thing happens. Your blood pressure goes up, and your pupils constrict, and you stop digesting your food, and so so all these things are mediated by different hormones in your bloodstream. So you got things like cortisol and all these endorphins and these stress hormones, and they work great for that minute, that few minutes we gotta get away from that thing. But this happens every day, all day. Then that wears your body down. And they've done experiments with rats where they had these rats in the community, and they had one set of rats where they had a lot of space, and another set of rats they put them close together, and they were crowded, and they dissected them, and they found that the ones that were in a crowded environment, their organs were older, their livers were older, their hearts were older, they didn't live as long, they were agitated, they fought more. Okay, and so that's what our life is. A lot of our lives are like, because we are living in those close quarters with people, and we got that we're being affected by the anxiety. And so the difference between stress and anxiety. Stress is, now everybody's got to have stress. Okay, if you look at, and there's a graph that kind of shows this very well. So stress motivates you. Stress. If you ever had a deadline for something, you get things done because we got a deadline. Okay, and so stress itself is not necessarily a bad thing. There's a graph that shows stress. So as you go out with stress, the more stress you have, the more effective you become. Okay, until you get to a point, and then you add any more stress, and now you become less effective. Okay, so you can't be working at 100% all the time because you burn out. Okay, you got to be somewhere, but you don't want to be at zero either, because then you're lazy. You don't do anything. Okay, so you gotta have some stress in your life, but you don't want to be what they call distress. Okay.
What'd you say? If you don't work, you don't eat.
That's right. You know what, Dr. Dryman, what do you think? The world is a great place except for the people, right? Yeah. No, but seriously, you gotta.
So just a quick comment. Since we know that stress and anxiety is detrimental to young people, just hope for the young people. Sometimes, well, I'll say this: what adults have learned is that your environment contributes to your stress.
Yeah.
So adults do things like remove themselves from certain environments so they can remove that stress. So that's one thing you can do to find a different environment so you don't have to be anxious or stressed in that environment. Some of you may not be able to do that, so I'll share a couple cheat codes with you. Planning to move into another environment can be something that you can look forward to that can relieve stress. So I say stuff like, some people, it's good to go to college sometimes just because it removes you from certain environments and puts you in a completely different environment.
Yeah.
So things like that. Also, your imagination is a great tool. So sometimes you can't remove yourself from certain environments. Sometimes maybe your house is chaotic, but nobody can take your imagination from you. So sometimes you have to see yourself and you have to imagine yourself in situations that are not stressful, and those things can hold and push you through. So yeah, we know stress kind of is a detriment to our community, and you can't move into a new community, or you can't get into a different environment, but you also have the ability to control your mind and what you imagine. So imagine yourself in those stressless environments, and then make moves to remove yourself and put yourself in better situations.
Thank you, brother. In other words, avoid drama. A lot of us have drama. I mean, we don't need it. You just got drama, and some of us are addicted to drama. You get out of one thing, you back in another dramatic situation. It's like you go from one drama to another, and it's not good for you. When I was a kid, I used to caddy at a golf course. And man, I tell you, because I grew up in the city, and you get out there in a golf course at 6 o'clock in the morning, and the sun's coming up, and the dew's on the grass, and it's quiet. And you carry a golf bag, and you see, this is how white folks live. They get up, they get the caddy, carry their bag for them, and they go, I'll have a little cup of coffee. And so, but yeah, just get away from the city sometime. Go to Havenwood, up there on off Silver Spring. You know, just go out and you go back in there, you can't even tell you're in the city anymore. You know, I was took my kids out there. We walk and see a snake. Oh yeah, here's a little garden snake. Pick a snake up, and you know, just see the spiders out there, and you know the animals, and yeah, you don't gotta be stuck in the city. You know, you can. He's always say you can live in the ghetto without being ghetto. You know, and so yeah, don't let the ghetto life get to you. You know, you just take some time. Be a free mind. You know, be a free spirit. Do some stuff. But yeah, thank you, brother. That's a very good point about avoiding drama. Because again, we're talking about that. We used to joke about it. You know, in surgery we called it. You know, the acute lead poisoning. You know, gunshot wounds. Although bullets really aren't made of lead, but we used to, it was a joke. Yeah, young man has acute lead poisoning. But yeah, so yeah, a lot of that stuff happens. Again, you're at the parties or you're at the places where people are angry, and so someone steps on your toe and you do something, that's way out of line. And it's because of, again, we're living in that stress, that fight versus flight, and so people are the trigger finger. They trigger them. Everybody's triggered. Everybody got these triggers. Okay. That's another thing too. You got to think about. You got to open your mind and realize that you're going to have situations all the time that happen. You can either react to it or you can respond to it. Reactions are automatic. You don't think about reactions. Okay. I hit my knee with a reflex hammer. My knee goes out. My foot goes out. That's a reflex. Okay. My brain didn't do anything about it. Okay. But you can choose how you're going to react to something. Okay, how you can respond to it. Okay, so your response may be, okay, I don't got time for that. My response is, okay, I don't need that person in my life. Okay, that's a response that's going to get you a whole further along down the line than just going by your first initial reaction, because those reactions sometimes will get you in trouble. So. Let me ask you, any of the young people got anything that they're concerned about? I know health is not even on your radar. Because you guys don't, because you think you're going to live forever. And it's not until you get your first, ache and pain, when you get in your 30s, you start saying, oh, maybe I'm not going to live forever. Yeah.
I got a question then. Yeah. So we have two athletes, football and basketball. Is there anything that is usually more prevalent, health-wise, in football players and what's that? Concussions. Okay.
That's a big thing now. Concussions.
What's a concussion? I heard it, but I don't fully understand. What's a concussion?
So concussion is when it's basically a bruise in your brain. Okay. So you know how you might hit your arm or something like that. You can when your head, basically your brain's in your skull, right? And when your head's moving, your brain's moving inside there. If your head stops suddenly, guess what? Your brain is still moving, and it hits the inside of your skull. Okay, you can't see it.
So basically, like an auto accident.
It is like an auto accident, or it could be. Sometimes you don't have to be moving fast. You can be moving at 5-10 miles per hour, and a sudden jerk can cause a concussion. But usually we describe it as, you start seeing signs or stars, I should say, or you get maybe confused. You got get you black out maybe temporarily. Those are concussions, and so your brain is it's pretty good. So yeah, you might maybe for a few hours you might be a little bit out of it, or sometimes it can be bad enough for several days. You might have a hard time concentrating. You might have a hard time sleeping. You might have a hard time, especially like looking at things, like watching TV. Anything that's moving fast, can give you a headache. So. You're sleepy, those kind of things. Those are parts of a concussion. Now, your brain will recover from that, but if you get another concussion before it completely heals, now you've compounded that. And so what happens with these athletes, these professional athletes, and they're getting wise about it now, is that you get too many of these things in your career, that adds up. And now you're 50 years old, and now you off killing somebody because you got this traumatic brain disorder where your brain has been damaged by all these concussions that you got. So Which another reason to, and again, hopefully with football, if you get a concussion, they're going to pull you out of the game. That can put you back in. When I was in school, they put you back in the game. Now, you a man, you get up and I'm ready, coach, put me back in. No. So, and the parents, y'all got to advocate for that too. Don't let them, put your kid back in the game. They got a concussion, because again, it's going to affect their life further down the line. But yeah, that's a big thing for athletes and other things too. Just regular other joint injuries, but concussions can be a big one. Wait, he got one, then I'll come back to you.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I'm going to the doctor pretty soon. I'm going to be 35 next month. And a lot of things that we don't talk about with our doctors is because we just trying to get back in the game. It's like pride. And pride comes before the downfall.
That's right.
How are we supposed to drop the pride and be transparent with our doctors and say, hey, I'm dealing with
Right.
It's easier saying when we like this, but
Let me say this. First of all,
I got a woman doctor.
You got a woman doctor?
My name's Mary Jane.
Yeah,
So.
and I'm not gonna down women doctors, but you need a doctor who you trust. Okay, a lot of us don't have primary care doctors. Okay, you go to the ER, you go to urgent care. So an urgent care doctor, their job, or ER doctor, their job is to get you out of there. Okay, so you go in with a headache. Their job is to make sure you're not having a stroke. And you're not having a brain tumor, okay? Even a brain tumor, they'll send you to somebody else for that, okay? So they might do a CAT scan. Okay, you don't have a stroke. We're going to send you, follow up with your primary doctor. Your primary doctor needs to know what you're going through, who you are, and then you should have that kind of relationship where you can tell them stuff. Doc, I'm having a problem with erections, and you're not embarrassed about it, okay? Or I got a discharge, should I be concerned about that? But yeah, everybody needs somebody to help them through the system, and that's what your doctor should be. That person who's your advocate, okay? And if you're running into, at least I would do this with my patients, if they're running into obstacles, like I send them, they want to see doctor so and so, they can't get in there, I'll call, or I'll or talk to the insurance company because they want to approve the medication. That's what your doctor's supposed to be doing. They're supposed to be advocating for you, and they're supposed to be also telling you the truth too. So you need to lose some some weight. I'm not gonna hope they're gonna do it in a mean way, but if they know you, they might say, "Boy, you put some pounds on." But they don't know. It's just like people don't. They're not gonna be honest with you. So and then the other thing too is it's down to like 15-minute visits for these office visits, and you don't got time. So if you got somebody who knows you, you can say, okay, last time we talked about such and such. How's that going? So you got to have a primary care doctor. Yeah, you got to find somebody you trust. If the person you have, you don't trust them or you don't get along with them, that's fine. Everybody's personalities are different. Find somebody else because they don't. They're not gonna be offended if you. Best thing in the world is for a patient who doesn't like you for them to fire you, because they're never gonna be happy with you anyway. So. Let them find somebody they're gonna be happy with.
So I was wondering, how was life as a doctor in 2020?
Oh.
You going back 5 years?
Yeah.
No, I just
So you meant during like COVID? Oh, okay. I thought you misquoted. I'm sorry. I misunderstood your question.
Well, it was hard on the whole medical community, especially the nurses. So this. It's interesting thing about COVID was that the technical name is SARS-CoV-2, okay, so SARS was a virus that was, so by there being COVID-2, it means there was a COVID-1, right? And COVID-1 actually came out like in 2008, so that was a while ago. So we knew about SARS. And everybody was concerned that SARS, by being a new virus, was going to get out and it was going to cause all this havoc like COVID did. It didn't. And so because it didn't do all that, they kind of put it on the back burner. And that's why they didn't develop a vaccine for it. Now, when SARS-CoV-2 came out, then everybody, and it became a pandemic, then they went back and said, okay, we got some research on one. We better finish up this vaccine. And that's how they got it done so fast, because they really had started working on stuff, but there was no incentive to do it because there was no money to be made because no one wanted to get a vaccine for a virus that wasn't doing anything. Okay? So, was it man-made? I don't know. Again, I don't know. So I'm not going to speculate whether it was made in China or whether it came from the wet market or whatever they're saying, or it came from a bat. But we're going to get. This is not the last one. No, there's always going to be another one. So nature is nature trying to kill us. Am I for vaccines? I'm for vaccines, but I'm not. Now at this point, again, I'm also practical. So do you need a vaccine right now? Another COVID booster? Most people don't. If you have, if you're someone who has terrible asthma, or you got COPD, or you got, you're dealing with, it's like it sound now, lupus, so you're dealing with you're immunocompromised or something. Yeah, get the vaccine, get the booster.
While you're on that subject, real quick,
Mm-hmm.
I'm 66. And
Mm-hmm.
I've been watching a lot of news. They said 65 or above they recommend.
Yeah.
So is that if you have other health conditions, or do they just recommend it if you're over that age?
Well, see, we're assuming that if you're over 65, that your health is going to be at a certain level. You may be healthier than the average 65-year-old. Looks like you probably are. So you probably may be a little different. And so all these things is based on averages. So the average 65-year-old is more likely to end up in a hospital, even if they get the flu, than someone under 65. Okay.
Who is they now? Because just recently, they're not recommending anything.
Right. So unfortunately, the politics have gotten involved in this. So and so that's frustrating as hell for us now, because we don't know, because we used to rely on the CDC to tell us, okay, this is the study, this is what we recommend, and now it's become politicized, and so.
I was just wondering,
Mm-hmm.
probably because I go see my primary on Wednesday,
Mm-hmm.
and I know they're going to recommend COVID and the flu
Mm-hmm.
vaccine for me, right?
Right.
And
Right.
I'm like, so I've already started thinking about, okay,
Right.
when they're going to say, it's time for your
Right.
flu and your COVID, should I take it?
And that's a question. That's a question. That's a legitimate question to ask your doctor. Should I have that? And if you don't understand, ask them why. And so and it's okay. It's okay to, again, that's why you have a primary care doctor, because you should have that kind of relationship. You can ask them. They're not going to be offended if you ask them, well, why you think I should do this, or why shouldn't I do this? Okay, but that's a conversation. Just like the prostate cancer talk, they got to find time to to have that conversation with you, because you need to understand, because this is your body. You are the master of that domain.
So, question. I'm gonna kind of speak for my community, the males around 40, only because me and my friends are similar. We have no problem going to the primary doctor, regularly. But I had an incident where, and I think it's other doctors in the house, but I had an incident where I got referred to a specialist. So my insurance is smooth, but when you start talking about specialists, it accumulates, and I end up racking up like a $5,000 bill, and I really didn't get an answer for what I needed. And the response was, well, we can do some more things. We can do some more tests, which equals more money. So I was just asking kind of like for your advice and how to navigate that. I don't have a problem going to a primary doctor, getting checked out. My doctor is dope. But when it comes to those specialists and you racking up these bills, and I couldn't say like, well, y'all really didn't give me an answer. Can I have my money back? You really can't say that. So how do you navigate that? Because me as a 40-year-old with a family, I'm like, shoot, I'm gonna just rough it out because I need this for IGs. I can't afford to have $5,000 bill. That could be going to my family, my kids.
Right. And
Stress.
Yeah, stress. And the leading cause for bankruptcy in the U.S. is medical bills. But hopefully, if you got a good primary care doctor, like I got patients come in, they say they got my knees messed up, okay, and rather than send them to an orthopedic surgeon and they're going to get an X-ray and they're going to maybe do an injection, I can get that, and I can do it cheaper than they'll do it. And like, if I do an injection, I don't even charge my patients for it. So I can do like a joint injection, or hopefully your primary care doctor. And that's why the reason why the insurance company wants you to have a primary care doctor, because they can do things a lot cheaper than a specialist does. So, and in most cases, again, like I said, as a student, you kind of learn. You have to learn all these other things. You don't have the expertise of a surgeon, but at least you know where they're heading. And so sometimes you can do things either. You can go by a different route, or you can do the test yourself, okay? And if it is positive, you can send them on, or if it's negative, then you don't have to. So someone comes with a headache. Not everybody with a headache needs most people with a headache don't need an MRI. They don't need a CAT scan, Okay, it may be stress, it may be allergies, it may be migraine, it may be any number of things. And so hopefully your primary doctor can kind of sort that out so you're not going over to urgent care. And urgent care, they know if they're going to see you ever again, so they're going to get a CAT scan because they want to cover their butt. Because if you go home and you have a stroke and they say, well, I was in urgent care yesterday and they sent me home, they don't want that risk. But your primary doctor can do that because I can say, okay, I don't think this is a stroke. Do this right here, unless I'm gonna call you on Monday. Okay, so I can follow up either way that the urgent care people can't do, or the ER.
In the same way, wouldn't a good primary doctor, if anyone's concerned, when they leave you to check out, eliminate that from being concerned?
Yeah. So, and that's the reason why you go in for your annual. Women are a lot better at doing this. So they come in for their annual exams. We don't go in there. The whole idea of the annual exam is, believe it or not, when you go for your exam, the least important thing is the exam part of it. The most important thing is your history, is what you're telling me. So you're going to tell me I'm having a problem with peeing. You're going to tell me I'm having blood in my urine. You're telling me that, Doc, I had the worst headache in my life the other day. So that's how I know what's going on. It's not from me examining your head or examining your urine. Now, that's just going to confirm what you're telling me. But the history part is the most important part. So you got to learn how to give a good history as a patient, because especially when you got a doctor who's like busy and they got 15 minutes. If you're going down a long garden path with, Tuesday I went this, and then Wednesday, and then Thursday, and then this other thing happened, and then I went over. No, they want to know, okay, you got to give them the important parts and kind of get to the point. But yeah, the history is the most important part, and that's when you go in for your annual exam, they should be getting a good history from you, okay? They should be asking, what's going on with your family? Anything new in your family? Oh, my brother had prostate cancer. Oh, you should get checked. Okay. Or you go in and say, I got a new job and it's really stressful, and you also mentioned you got headaches. Oh, that's why you get the headaches, because you got this new stressful job. So it all fits together, but you got to give them the pieces. Okay, and that's what the idea of your annual exam should be about. Most insurances, I dare say, all of them cover the annual exam, because they want you to have that, because that's the time where you start picking these things up before they get a problem. Once it gets once you got the severe back pain and we did an x-ray and we see that you got metastatic prostate cancer, that's a whole lot more expensive than if we talked about you getting screened before it got out the capsule. Okay, so everybody will cover your annual exam. So get in and get an annual exam. Just get checked out. And the problem with a lot of guys, especially the 40-year-old guys, is that you've been healthy. Your whole life you haven't had anything major. You probably haven't had any major surgery or anything, but stuff's happening to you. And so until all of a sudden now, boom, my knee, I blew my knee out, or, whatever. Then you start thinking about stuff. But the idea of going every annual is that we want to start screening for stuff before it gets to be a problem. Because, like, for instance, we know that 100 million, 98 million people in the U.S. are pre-diabetic. Okay, that means that you don't meet the criteria for diabetes, but you're higher than normal. Okay, and it means that you're on your way to becoming diabetic. So if no one screens you for it, you'd never know that. Things like again, a lot of these cancers we're looking from before it becomes a problem. You're not going to notice that you're a peeing problem before your PSA level is going to go up way before you start noticing that you can't pee, or that you got blood in your urine. Colon cancer, same thing. Before you start having problems with bowel obstructions, that cancer is going to be way far gone. So when you do that colonoscopy, you're catching it way early before that. So you can't wait until you have symptoms, because that usually means that something's already going on, and you want to catch it, if you can, catch it earlier.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you, Dr. Izzard. Can everybody get Dr. Izzard a hand? We had this broken down into two parts. One part was the most important part, Dr. Izzard, but equally as important is people getting a chance to share their stories. So we had at least the last 15 minutes allotted for people if they had any medical issues, if they wanted to do any testimonials, share with us, because the more people know that it's real, the less people feel isolated, and more likely are they to find somebody else to take that chance. Like you mentioned, the prostate thing. I know that whenever I heard that, I thought about the exam, and that was the end of that discussion. So until I heard somebody else tell me the whole story, it wasn't all the way real to me. It was like, that ain't me. That's somebody else. That's somebody else. So at this time, is there anybody that wanted to share any testimonials?
I got one more thing, because you had started it, and I don't think I hit the nail on the head about the rectal exam. So now we don't do the rectal exam routinely, and the reason is because when I ask a guy, should I screen you for prostate cancer, and first thing to think of, you're gonna put your finger in my butt. Nope. No, thank you. Everybody calls it, I am not being violated. You got to buy me lunch if you do. So, and we found that in diagnosing prostate cancer, the PSA blood test is going to pick up all those cancers. So now, in fact, the PSA blood test is actually not 100% because it's going to pick up other things too that may not be prostate cancer. So if your PSA is elevated, it doesn't necessarily mean you have cancer. Okay, it could be something else, but it is a good screening for it. So chances are now you are not going to get a routine rectal exam, okay, unless something else is going on. We got rid of that because it's causing more problems than it's actually helping.
So
thank you for that.
Yes, so I have a testimonial, kind of not really one, but kind of is. So last year or two ago, my granddad passed away, but he was living the past 3 to 5 years with a disease actually, which was genetic, which was in his blood. I forgot what it was called, but I think I seen a commercial with it, and Kareem has it. And I forgot what it was, but basically,
atrial fibrillation, atrial fibrillation, AFib,
something probably around that. Basically getting blood clots and stuff. And
AFib.
Seeing him like through those years, kind of suffer and health decline steadily, and then taking more pills to manage it, and it kind of taught me to make sure you keep a history, like he was just saying, because when it comes to these problems that we take for granted, or, I just don't feel good today, it can end up being something terminal that can last for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Or it could change your life.
Yeah.
Because my grandfather was the most active person I knew, all the way to cutting grass, working 24/7, always doing something, fishing, all type of crazy stories, to barely being able to go out the house even like once, twice a week. So my testimonial, like I said, is be consistent and really take your health seriously.
Yeah. Real quick, AFib, what he's talking about, I think he's talking about that Kareem Abdul-Jabbar had. He was saying he was walking to the airport and he was like really short of breath. That's how he realized he had it. So atrial fibrillation is normally when your heart contracts, the top part contracts at first and the bottom part contracts second. So it's do. It's synchronized, so it pushes the blood down and pushes it out. With AFib, those things they're not synchronized anymore. So you got the top part contracting at a different rate than the bottom part, and it's going like this. And so the blood, instead of going through like this, now it's going back up. And so the blood is now in your heart longer than it normally would be. And when blood sits around, guess what? It clots. So when you have AFib, you're prone to forming blood clots. And guess where that blood is going once it leaves your heart? It's going to your body, but from the right side, it's going to the lungs to pick up oxygen. And so if a blood clot goes from that right side of the heart to the lung, it blocks the flow of blood to the lungs immediately. You can't get any oxygen, and guess what? You die suddenly. So yeah.
No, we're down to our last 15 minutes or less, so if we can share some testimonies that might be short and sweet, and hopefully the message of it is how important it is to get tested. Trying to get somebody sitting in here now to be able to move forward, right? I was one of those, never went to the doctor. I went to one of these. There was a brother named Muhib, a brother named Derek Rogers, was doing some conversation about the importance of. I was like, man, I'm a man. I'm tough. I don't go to no doctor, right? And then I went and started finding out about the diabetes stuff that I'm dealing with and suffering from. And real important sometimes, what is that nudge to get you to go? So my hopes is that some of us have dealt with things. And I know some of y'all have dealt with some things in the room, and I'm hoping you speak up. So just wanted to share.
Okay, so I basically was pretty healthy till I got to 50. And I teased my elders about it because I said, y'all didn't warn me about 50. And at the time that I turned 50, and I was teasing with them, they said, well, wait till you get 60. And then I had one elder said, yeah, if you're so lucky, wait till you get 80. And so at 50, I had never had a sports injury or anything like that. And so right around 50, I tore my patella tendon. And then a couple years ago, going from first base to second base, I popped my Achilles. So this leg and this leg. Now I'm developing pain in my knees, arthritis. What do you do? You know, what can you do to prevent arthritis? And my doctor died that did the surgery on the patella tendon, so I never really got it checked out again as to whether it has a lot of scar tissue. I don't even know that. So yeah. And how do you know you got a blood clot? How do you know if you have a blood clot? And one more thing, you talked about stress. What about meditation? What does that do?
Okay, I'll start with the last one. Meditation is good. Praying is good. Basically meditation. Deep breathing. We're talking about that fight or flight response, your sympathetic nervous system. The opposite of that is your autonomic nervous system. This is the stuff where we start digesting your food and things like that. So when you take a deep breath, what happens is your diaphragm. There's a nerve, the vagus nerve attached to your diaphragm, and when you take deep breaths, you stimulate that vagus nerve, and it reverses the fight or flight response. Okay. Yeah. Breathing, yeah, but breathe with your stomach. Yeah. So you want to do that. Yeah, that deep breathing. How you know you? Which is what happened when people smoke cigarettes. Why they think that cigarettes are relaxing? Because guess what? You go out. First, you can't smoke in your job. You gotta go outside. You go with your crew, other people who can't smoke too, and you guess what? You go. You take a deep breath. Okay, and so that's why people get relaxation out of cigarettes. It's not because the nicotine's an addiction. Yeah, it's addictive.
Let's keep it moving.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. And real quick, blood clot. Usually you're swollen your leg. That's usually where it starts off. Is your leg.
My testimony is similar to most of everybody's in this room. I like to let everybody know that some disabilities are hidden. When you look at an individual, you may not see that something's going on. I see some of you guys might look at me and think I'm nice and healthy. Well, let me tell you, I'm having October 8th a total reversal shoulder replacement.
Oh.
And I had 3 rotator cuff injuries. I wasn't sure if I should have this shoulder replacement. So I did keep informed with my doctor, communicating with him. I can either stay in this pain that I'm in, or I can have the replacement. So if you can give me any advice about maybe a third or fourth opinion, because there will be limitations that I won't be able to do anymore. You know how you can do this with your right arm? Well, because of the rotator cuff injury, I can't go past here.
Yeah.
Well, with the shoulder replacement surgery I'm going to have October 8th, I may be able to raise my arm up to here. So I don't know if I should get a third or fourth or fifth or sixth opinion.
Let me ask something that's so important. This is confusing. This was my best friend as we reconnected as adults, and he was telling me about his shoulder injury, right? And I had a football injury a long time ago. I used to couldn't do this. About a year ago. I went to the doctor and they said you have arthritis. I'm sorry. They say I got arthritis sitting there, right? And I'm thinking, oh my God, surgery, because I'm hearing all of what he went through, and this was around the same time. And then all of a sudden, about 6, 8 months ago, whatever, right? I can do this. I used to couldn't do this without the pain. So I don't know if sometimes arthritis, and maybe you can add that to.
And it may not necessarily be that you have arthritis. It may be that or you have arthritis and something else. You probably have what they call adhesive capsulitis or frozen shoulder. So a lot of times, if you got a shoulder injury and you stop moving your shoulder, you form scar tissue in your shoulder, and so you got to break that scar tissue up. And that might have been what you had going on. And you might have arthritis too. But the arthritis may not have been a major thing. What do you about arthritis? That's about. It happens because after years of playing football, young brothers over here, they're young right now, but see them in 20 years, 30 years. The joints wear down, those injuries come back to haunt you. And I hate to say this, that it's a routine, but man, these not shoulder, but the knees and the hip replacements, they are like magic now. They go in, and it used to be that you were in for several days. You go in for one day now, and they can replace your hip. They basically they cut the head of your femur bone here, and there's a ball and socket. They put a little ball in there. It's metal, and they glue it in there, and within hours of that surgery, you're up walking around. So it's amazing. But and they want you to wait because these things wear down. They got about 10-year lifespan. I imagine the newer ones probably have longer. It's going to be like 15 or even 20 years. So they want you to wait until like if you do this when you're 30, by the time you're 50, you're probably going to need another one. But if you do it when you're 50, well, you're going to get out to 70, well, then you're probably going to be all right. So they want you to wait as long as you can before you do it. But if it's really limiting your lifestyle, I would say, if you're like really active and you can't reach, the top shelf because you can't reach, then I would say go ahead and do it. Make sure you got, make sure you investigate it, pray about it, okay, and then go for it.
Quick question. Just going back to the arthritis because this is on my mind now. I know that when my grandmother was passing, I told her to drink pineapple juice to help alleviate the pain. I do that too because I thought I may have that issue. Is there any other things that you could think of that maybe people should possibly pick up as a good habit? Like, okay, because they say apple a day, keep the doctor away, and other things you should eat. Right. Grapes are healthy for blood flow. Any quick, like give me quick 3 fruits.
Yeah, there's a bunch of stuff about, we go through these cycles where I remember for a while it was like noni juice. So people were drinking noni juice for everything. And big thing, and then tea tree oil. But there's some stuff with apple cider vinegar that actually has some positive effects. It's good for your metabolism. I don't think it's necessarily going to cure your arthritis, but it's not bad to do apple cider vinegar. Just a tablespoon with an 8-ounce glass of water. Drink that down once a day. For joints, there's some stuff on chondroitin sulfate. You can get that over the counter. That helps with joints. Doesn't help for everybody. A lot of it, I think, is also inflammation, which is a whole other thing. And that has to go back way down into our diet because we're eating stuff that's pro-inflammatory. Yep. And, so we're getting not just arthritis, but really it's inflammation that's causing it's really more of a tendonitis than it is arthritis. But I think a lot of that, too, and that goes back to the stuff we're eating in our diet and being overweight. And the other thing that people never heard of, biggest thing, and you can start hearing about this, and you probably never heard of it, fatty liver disease. It's it's becoming a huge problem because people are getting bigger and they're storing fat in their liver, and it can cause liver cirrhosis later on.
Okay. Well, real quick testimony, and then we're gonna give everybody their day back. About a little over 2 years ago, and this is just to stress the importance, guys, of early detection. It saved my life 2 years ago. I was diagnosed with urothelial cancer. Not to go too far into it because I want to be quick here, but basically, cancer in the nether regions, and I had to have my kidney removed last summer. Part of my bladder removed, and they took out my whole ureter. But it was early, and now I'm actually what's called low grade, and it's treatable with just radiation treatment and things of that nature. So early detection.
Amen.
I saw blood in my urine. I ran to the doctor like, yo, this ain't normal. What's going on?
And you know what? And like the thing he says it's important too is cancer doesn't mean you're gonna die. No. You get it treated, you attack it early, you can survive these things. You can do you don't need you don't even need 2 kidneys. You can do well with 1 kidney and 1 ureter. Yeah. I didn't know that. right, you didn't know that, right? No home remedies for that.
In general, what do you think about home remedies?
Home remedies?
Things like camphor spirit.
For most of this stuff, this is the problem, is that a lot of this stuff hasn't been studied. So people they're taking cinnamon for the blood pressure, or they're doing, ashwagandha, or there's a bunch of stuff that's out there, but it hasn't really been studied, and it's hard to make recommendations because even though it's herbal, it doesn't mean it's not going to interact with something else too. So you got to be careful about whether medication you're taking, because it can still interact with things. Because even these prescription medications, they usually all start off as something herbal. They went to the third world and they found out that people in the Amazon were using this, and that's how they got these medications, right? So that's how it all comes from. And they just kind of distill it and put it in the pill and sell it for 100 times more. So be careful about that.
As a doctor, would you subscribe like more of a holistic or herbalistic way, or more of the medication way?
I'm both. I would say this: if the herbal stuff, I'm not sure which one that's for. but the herbal stuff, if it's not causing harm, fine, go ahead and do it. Okay. Make sure, if you are going to do it though, use a reputable manufacturer. So like Nature Made or something like that. Because a lot of these pills that you buy, depending on who's making it, you can't guarantee that 50 milligrams or whatever that is 50 milligrams. And so so you got to make sure you use someone who's reputable, and then do the research and ask your doctor too. And you might have to, because your doctor might never know, especially if you come up with something that they never heard of. Is my ashwagandha gonna interfere with my Rocephin? I don't know. So they might have to look it up. So you might have to do some more research. But don't assume because it's herbal that it's going to be necessarily safe or that's not going to interact with something.
At that note, can we give the doctor another hand, please?